Wine was sitting at her desk typing something. That's when one of the employees approached her and called out, Wine. Wine looked up with her curious eyes. The girl said, Mr. John called you. He wants to see you right now. Wine's hand froze in place. Jeon Jungkook, the CEO of Jeon Enterprise. He was cold, scary, and mature enough to handle everything with his own calculated mind. He was kind of man whose presence alone made people nervous. Every employee feared him because one mistake could cost them their job. On the other hand, Wine works as a normal employee in his company. She is passionate and hardworking, but she is also clumsy, clumsy enough to make small mistakes sometimes. Because of that, she is always extra afraid of Mr. Jeon. She knows that one mistake in front of him could end everything. She cannot afford to lose this job. She only has her mother, no one else. Their financial situation isn't good, and Wine is the only one earning in her family. To keep everything together, she needs this job. Wine frowned slightly. Confusion tightened her eyebrow. What? Why? Wine asked. The employee shrugged. I don't know. Did you submit the financial file to him? Or did you forget? One froze, thinking. Then she nodded. I already did. Well, he still wants to see you, so go, the girl urged. One Charlotte nodded again slowly and pushed her back her chair. Anxiety settled heavily in her chest. Now Wyan was standing in front of Jungkook's office. She took a deep breath and whispered to herself, Don't make any mistake, okay? Steeling herself, she knocked on the door. From the other side came a cold, deep voice. Come in. Wan slowly stepped inside the office. Jungkook, immersed in his work, didn't look up from his screen. You call me sir? She said softly, her voice tinged with nervousness. Finally, Jungkook looked up and nodded his head, then took the file she had submitted earlier and passed it back to her. There are several mistakes in this file, he said in a deep, cold tone. Some errors need to be corrected. Wan lowered her gaze immediately. I'm sorry, sir. I didn't notice. I'll fix it right away. Jungkook leaned back sadly, his eyes pressing her with a cold, calculating gaze. You know, he said slowly, perfection doesn't come if you don't focus on it. Wan's head twisted tightly at her side. Her head still bowed. He continued, his dark eyes piercing hers. Mistake like this can cost the chance to secure the deal in our favor. I understand, sir, she whispered, her voice steady despite her nervousness. It won't happen again. Jungkook nodded slowly. I'll expect that moving forward. After a few moments of silence, he added, You may leave. Wan bowed her head quickly, grabbed the file, and hurried out of the office. Her steps almost breaking into a small run. She knew that if she stayed any longer, she might make another mistake, and she couldn't afford that. From behind his desk, Jungkook watched her retreating figure. His eyes followed her small, hurried frame, and despite himself, a faint smile tugged at the corner of his lips. Shaking his head sadly, he turned back to his work. Wan was sitting on her desk, carefully rewriting the file that Jungkook had just given her. The office was quiet for a moment, until two of the female employees approached her. You know, guys, one of them whispered. Glancing around nervously, Mr. Jeon fired the HR department. Miss Kim. One frowned. What? But why? The other employee lowered her voice. I heard from others she copied some of the accounting reports from someone else and adjusted them in her file. Mr. June caught it immediately and, well, he fired her. One froze for a moment, progressing the news, then muttered under her breath, I guess that's fair. Who told her to copy financial numbers when she knew how scary Mr. June is? The first employee nodded. That's true. The second employee added, Mr. June is really scary. Even I can barely stand in front of him without shaking. One nodded in agreement. From behind them, a deep, husky voice cut through the room. What's going on here? One flinched slightly, her heart skipping a beat, and immediately stood up. The other two girls rose with her, tense and nervous. Jungkook's dark, piercing eyes fell on Wine. She quickly looked down, her heartbeat accelerating. Sir, one of the employees stammered, her voice barely audible. If you are done, Jungkook said coldly, his tone sharp as ice, I suggest you to get back to work. The other employee lowered her head instantly. I'm sorry, sir, it won't happen again. Jungkook gave a single note, his expression unreadable. Then, with a final glance at Wine, who still kept her eyes lowered, he turned and left the room silently, leaving a tense, heavy quiet behind him. The meeting room was silent. At the head of the table sat Jeon Jungkook, his face emotionless and unreadable. His aura filled the room, creating a heavy tension that kept every employee completely quiet. No one dared to make a sound. Today's meeting was important, and every employee had prepared their presentation carefully. One sat nervously in her seat, hands clasped together under the table. Across from her seat, Rina, Jungkook's secretary, who wore a smirk on her lips. One frowned slightly. She noticed it, though she didn't understand the reason behind it. Rina had never liked her. In fact, she hated her. She always hated how Mr. June never scolded Wine, even when she made mistakes or acted clumsy. The fact that Jungkook never said anything to her made Rina with jealousy. Jungkook's cold voice suddenly echoed through the room. Start the meeting. His manager nodded. One by one, employees stood and delivered their reports. Jungkook watched each slide with steady focus. Wine's heart raced, nerves crawled up her spine. Soon it was her turn. One stood, walked to the screen, opened her laptop and began her presentation. That's when Rina suddenly spoke loudly. Stop. One froze immediately and looked at her. Jungkook's eyes also shifted towards Rina, though his face remained cold. Then he spoke in a deep voice. What is this? Rina quickly responds. This was my presentation. These were my slides. One frowned, looking at Rina. What? Those are my slides. How can they be yours? You stole my slides and now you are pretending they are yours. She turned her gaze to Jungkook. Sir, believe me, these slides are mine. One stole them. Jungkook brow frowned. His voice cut through the rising tension, low and cold. How could she have stolen it from you? Rina's tone wavered slightly, a hint of desperation creeping in. I don't know, sir, but this presentation, it was mine. No, one protested. I didn't take anyone's slides. These are mine. I made them. Rina let out a mocking chuckle, turning back to Wine. You didn't make them. You stole them. She turned towards Jungkook. urgency in her eyes. Sir, this presentation is on my laptop too. I can show you. Hurriedly she opened her laptop, bringing up the exact slides Wine had been presenting. The employees around them began mumbling to each other. Jungkook's dark gaze remained fixed on the laptop. Wine's eyes widened at the sight. Her presentation on Rina's laptop. She couldn't understand how it was there. Her heart thumped painfully in her chest, and she grew even more nervous. She looked towards Jungkook, knowing how deeply he hated copying others. And most likely, he would believe his secretary over a normal employee. The possibility of being accused, the thought of him firing her, began crawling inside her mind. Tears welled in her eyes. She didn't know what to do. Rina spoke again, turning to Jungkook. See, this is the exact presentation I made, and the same one she tried to present in front of you as her own. Jungkook's cold eyes drifted towards Wine now, studying her silently, every expression, every breath. Rina's voice rang again, colder this time. She stole my work, sir. You need to fire her. Wine's patience snapped, anger finally shaking through her voice. You are the one lying here. You stole my project, not me. Rina's jaw clenched tightly. She turned to Jungkook again. Sir, remember when I come to your office to review my file, I asked if you should plan the confidential profit at 50% or 60% on that product. You told me to change the staging for confidentially. That's why I made this presentation, just as a reference. Wine's hand trembling. Her heartbeat pounded painfully. Everything was turning against her. Rina continued. So this presentation was mine, not Wine's. Then she should Wine a weak smile, and for stealing it, she should be fired. But before she could finish her sentence, Jungkook's calm, cold, deep voice cut through the room. Enough. Instantly the room fell silent. Not a single breath dared to move after hearing Jungkook's voice. Wine looked at Jungkook with teary eyes, still trembling from the chaos. Across from her, Rina wore a smirking expression. Jungkook's cold eyes locked onto Rina. Miss Rina, he said, his voice deep and sharp, as you said you made these slides, so naturally you would have the draft saved on your laptop, correct? Rina's smile vanished immediately. Her confidence fluttered, and a nervous tension replaced it. Jungkook's gaze bore onto her like ice as he continued in a cold tone. Show me your graft then. Rina froze. She had stolen slide from Wine's laptop but hadn't taken her graft. Now she didn't know what to do. Wine, still trembling, glanced at Rina, who remained silent. Say nothing. Jungkook's voice cut through the room again, calm but commanding. I ask you something. Rina's lips quivered as she stuttered. Sir, I don't have that craft with me. I mean, Jungkook didn't wait for her to finish. His gaze shifted to Wine. Miss Wine, do you have the raw craft of this presentation? Wine nodded immediately, her hands still slightly shaking. Show me. Jungkook ordered. Wine's trembling hand hovered over her laptop, fingers shaking as she typed and opened the file connected to the projector. Jungkook noticed her trembling. His voice softened just slightly. Relax, he said calmly. Wine looked at him and nodded, taking a steadying breath. Moments later, her craft appearing on the projector, Rina closed her eyes and Jungkook rose from his seat, and the other employee instinctively stood as well. He walked towards Rina, his presence retaining authority. Sir, Rina stammered, trying to speak, but before she could finish, Jungkook's cold, deep voice cut her off. You are fired. Her eyes widened in shock. One felt a mixture of surprise and relief. Sir, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have. Please, Rina pleaded. Out, now. Jungkook's words were final, leaving no room for arguments. Rina lowered her gaze, fully aware that Jungkook's command was absolute. Without another word, she left the room. Jungkook turned his attention to Wine, his eyes softened now. Wine's voice quivered as she whispered, "Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for believing me." Jungkook said nothing, only nodded once, his soft gaze lingering on her before retreating to his seat. "You may continue your presentation," he said finally. Wine nodded and resumed, her hands steadier now, confidence slowly returning. After some time, the meeting ended. Employees filed out, one by one. When the room finally emptied, Jungkook stopped Wine. "Wine, come to my cabin." Wine frowned slightly, then nodded. Jungkook stepped out of the meeting room, the soft clack of his shoes echoing through the now silent office. It was almost evening when Wine stepped hesitantly into Jungkook's office. He was sitting at his desk, eyes lifting when met hers as she approached. "Thank you, sir," she said softly again. Jungkook's eyes softened immediately. "It's not necessary," he replied quietly. "I know you are not the kind of person who would do something like that. I trust you." One looked up into his gaze, and something fluttered in her chest at his words. "Sit down," he instructed. One frowned slightly, unsure. Then Jungkook continued, "I brought lunch for both of us." "Lunch?" she asked, startled, her voice shaking. He nodded calmly. I noticed you didn't have your lunch today. Sit here." He had seen how nervous she had been all day for the presentation. How tense she had been, and that's why she hadn't eaten her lunch. That was why he had brought her here. One felt her heart flutter at the gesture, nervous mingling with a strange warmth. After a few moments, she carefully sat down in front of him. As she did, the food almost slipped by her hands. But Jungkook caught it in time. One gasped and instinctively closed her eyes. Jungkook let out a quiet chuckle. "Relax, you don't have to be nervous around me. I'm not that scary." One's eyes widened, her mind raced. Remembering that day, realizing he must have heard everything that was said about him. Her cheeks flushed, and a small nervous smile tugged at her lips. I'm sorry, she stammered. "I said I'm not that scary." Jungkook interrupted gently, his tone soft but firm. "Now eat. Your food is getting cold." One smile grew a little more confident. Together they began their meal, the tension of the day slowly giving way to quiet combination. A few weeks passed, and in those weeks something quietly bloomed between Jungkook and Won. Their bond grew unexpectedly closer. Won found herself falling for him again and again. His gentleness, his small acts of kindness, the way his voice softened only for her. Everything made her heart flutter. But she never said anything. She never found the courage. Now Won stood outside the company building, waiting for her taxi. She checked her phone for the 10th time and muttered under her breath, "This taxi, where is it?" She had been waiting nearly 30 minutes and still nothing. Suddenly a sleek black car rolled to a stop in front of her. One frowned, the window lowered, and her heart skipped. Jungkook was inside. His cold, calm voice drifted out. "Get in, I'll drop you." One's eyes widened. "No, it's okay, my taxi will come." "Cancel it," Jungkook interrupted. "I'll drop you, don't worry." One hesitated for a moment, then nodded and got in. She sat beside him quietly. Minutes later, the car stopped in front of her apartment building. One bowed politely. "Thank you, sir," she said, reaching for the door. But before she could step out, One, his deep voice froze her in place. She turned, curious eyes meeting his. Jungkook turned fully towards her, dark eyes steady. His voice dropped into a low husky tone. You know, I'm not the type of person who wastes time. Wan blinked, confused, but she listened silently. Jungkook continued slowly. I love you. Wan's heart dropped. For a full second her mind blanked. What? She whispered. Jungkook exhaled softly. When you first stepped into this company, I fell for you. Your clumsiness, your smile, your childish habits, everything. It became harder every day. His voice lowered further. I might look cold and scary to others, but I'm trying to be my best version only for you. Wan's palm was sweating badly now. I don't know how you feel about me, but before he could finish, Wan cut him off suddenly. What if I say I love you too? Jungkook's eyes widened, genuine shock flickered across his face, and then slowly the rarest smile appeared on his lips, one she had never seen before. His hands slid around her waist, pulling her closer until their faces hovering inches apart. Then I'd be the luckiest man in the world, he mumbled. Wan's gaze dropped shyly. Jungkook cupped her face softly, caressing her cheek, and leaned forward to place a gentle kiss on her forehead. See, he whispered teasingly, I'm not that scary. Wan let out a small chuckle. And tomorrow, Jungkook continued, get ready, we are going on our first date. Wan's smile turned childishly bright, adorable, pure. Seeing her like that, Jungkook chuckled too, their soft laughter echoing inside the car. Everything felt peaceful, warm, romantic, like the beginning of something beautiful.